start our presentation. So we're talking about gardening for butterflies and caterpillars. And I'm Susan Karasoff with the California Native Plant Society, Yerba Buena. And that beautiful picture of a caterpillar on a coast buckwheat was taken by someone on iNaturalist. None of the pictures you're going to see today are from me because I tend to squeal, which really annoys insects. I don't know why. So we're going to talk about what are native plants, butterfly habitat needs, actions you can take. We're going to spend some time on that. Butterflies in plant communities, caterpillar plants in gardens, container gardening for butterflies, year-round buffets for people and wildlife, because what we are doing here is we are planting food, and we'll talk about native garden resources. Go ahead and put your questions or comments in either the chat or the question and answers. Susan Mullaney will go ahead and answer those as we go along if she can. And because all of us are smarter than any one of us, you may have questions that I don't know the answer to, but someone else online is, because this is CMPS and we have a lot of smart and experienced people here, which is really fun. And then afterwards, if you want to talk as opposed to type a question in, you can raise your hand and we'll have a nice community chat at the end, because I miss hanging out with you guys. So what are native plants? Oh, by the way, pipevine swallowtail, adult male butterfly, again, going to be at the Randall, April 20th, gorgeous, on our delicious, both for that butterfly and for people, one-leaf onion in bloom, gorgeous. So native plants, what are native plants? Native plants evolved here. They evolved here on our soils with our north and south foggy, windy experiences, because we have those 3 different fog and wind banks. We've got at least 6 different kinds of soil, and they also evolved in our incredibly variable rainfall. Not only do we have a lot of variation from month to month, but a lot of variation within months. This year we've had 24 inches of rain. Last year we had 32 inches of rain. I don't know when we've ever had a back-to-back rainfall over our average of 21 inches. But it's why we've got a super bloom this year, and we had a super bloom last year. So pretty incredible. But we've had a lot of years where we've had as little as 7 inches of rain. And the plants that we have here are adapted to all of those different soils, are adapted to our fog and wind, and are adapted to this variation in rainfall. They can manage as little as 7 inches of rain and as much as 50, which is the maximum we've had. Keep that in mind when you're thinking, oh, I should plant something from Southern California for climate change. Please don't do that. Please plant something local here that will go ahead and be drought tolerant. We've got toyons that are native all the way down past Los Angeles, blue elderberries native all the way down to Baja California. We have got buckeyes that are native all the way down past Los Angeles. So we've got plenty of plants that are drought tolerant. They're going to do fine here, and they're going to be super happy if you plant them in their plant communities. So this wonderful map was done by Hidden Nature. It's called Hidden Nature, and it's a San Francisco Estuary Institute project. And I will keep mentioning them because they do some wonderful, actionable work looking at all of the different plant communities that we had historically in San Francisco. Those plant communities, those plants evolved together in plant communities. They have different varying depths of into the soil or the rock, and they have different plant parts above ground at different heights, and so they evolved together. They've got mycorrhizal fungi, which is a fancy way of saying little mushroom networks underground to help plants share water and nutrients. And so everything from those little annuals and their very short plant roots at the top to some of our plants that have tap roots. It's important to have these plants planted in their plant communities together. And when we do that, we give those plants a chance to be as robust as they have been, because it's not a plant by itself that's going to manage 7 inches of rain in a bad drought or 50 inches of rain in one of our series of atmospheric rivers. It's these plants planted together in plant communities. And not only do the plants help each other, But when you have all of these, the plants help each other survive. But when we have them all together, or at least a good portion of them, they also have varying bloom periods that support a variety of different insects and a variety of different birds and other wildlife. So it's great when we have the space to plant these things together. So even if what you have is an empty tree well that's 2 feet by 3 feet, consider planting 2 or 3 plants in there that are native plants from the same plant community, and then see how happy they are together. Our plant communities are as varied as northern oak woodland, northern coastal dune scrub, our dunes. We have a couple of different kinds of grasslands because San Francisco, for those of you who are the bright pink sash there, that is serpentine rock. We not only had grasslands, we have serpentine grasslands. And then we have riparian, which is a fancy way of saying creekside. So we can never say that all of our plants are drought tolerant, because we do have riparian plants that would very much like to have a lot more water than the rest of the plants in our other plant communities. And not only do we have all these plants together, but we have the butterflies and the moths, these Lepidoptera, that co-evolved with these plants in these plant communities. They're really expecting to see all that, so that our 35 local butterflies, none of which are the monarch, don't have to migrate, and some of them don't even have the energy to fly very far. So we want to give them what they need right there where they need it, so they don't have to go very far to find breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There are a lot of great there's a lot of great information available on plant communities. Las Politas has got a really good set. There's SF Plant Finder, there's the Hidden Nature, and there's the National Park Service has got a good set. And Calscape is going to have a redo on April 22nd, and it is going to include plant communities, and I'm so excited. So we have 1,300 butterflies and moths in California, but California is just it's a state of mind. It's a political thing that humans invented. What we have are a bunch of different plant communities, and we have different local areas. And so here in San Francisco, we have 35 butterflies. If we take a look, and Doug Tallamy did this research, which plants support which plant communities, and this is based on published data. We've got plants that support as many as 200 to 300 plants, different butterfly and moth caterpillars, because caterpillars evolved to eat leaves, co-evolved with local native plants to eat those leaves. And just like the monarch needs milkweed, we have a bunch of butterflies and moths that need the local native plants that they co-evolved with. And so there's something called a keystone plant, and those willows, oaks, and cherries are keystone plants in almost every county in the United States, which is kind of interesting. And Doug Tallamy was paid to get that information, pull that information together for every county by the U.S. Department of Agriculture back in 2016. And so that's available on the National Wildlife Federation's Native Plant Finder website. Calscape has also pulled in all the information for both for the native California butterflies and moths. And so that information is available on Calscape now, as well as it will be available on the April 22nd upgrade. Another thing that Doug Tallamy came up with his researchers is they had a researcher who hung out and watched and counted how many caterpillars it took for one nest of baby chickadee birds to go from just being born to being able to leave the nest to find their own food. It is 6,000 to 9,000 caterpillars. So we need to have a landscape that is dripping in caterpillars to feed our birds. The Audubon Society, the Golden Gate Bird Society, these groups are just as active as the Native Plant Society in trying to put our native plants back in the landscape so that those leaves are available to feed the caterpillars some of which will turn into butterflies and moths, and some of which will turn into baby birds. So this is about butterflies, but we're going to spend a couple of charts on bees because I really care about pollinators. it turns out that there are not only caterpillars that co-evolved with our native plant leaves, but we've got bees that co-evolved with our native plant pollen. There's 1,500 bees in California, native bees. The honeybee is not native, it's from Europe and Asia. But over 600 of those bees are pollen specialists. They have to have particular pollen to feed to their baby bees for us to have those bees in our landscape. And so if you compare this plant list, it's a great plant list, to this plant list, also a great plant list, you're going to see real differences. And so I'm just fascinated that there's this much real difference. And it turns out there's a bunch of these specialist bees that I'm going to call solo specialist bees because the technical term is a lot of syllables and I don't know how to pronounce it. And we have over 200 of our 600 specialist bees just eat food, just eat pollen from one genera. So a genera is a funny word. Species is, for instance, hummingbird sage, Salvia spathica. It's in the mint family, but between family and species, there's this funny thing called genera. And so it's all of the sages are in the sage or the salvia genera. And so if you look at these and you've always wanted to get some more of those Mariposa lilies, this is your excuse. All 10 specialist bees only use Mariposa lily pollen. If you've really been considering putting more of our native annuals into your garden, oh, please do that. It turns out that meadow foam and, and baby blue eyes and bobbies and goldfields and clarkias, most of the phacelias are annuals. Oh my goodness, they are required for our beautiful baby bees. So yeah, these are all really different plant lists. And so this is my permission to you to just go put all the native plants you want in your garden and then work with us to help all of our city agencies and state agencies put more native plants in our public spaces, because clearly our pollinators need us. So almost everything I'm going to talk about today is for the caterpillars specifically, because this is California Native Plant Society and you guys, you can handle the truth. But just in case you thought, well, what are the adult butterflies going to eat? They're also going to do just fine with all of our native plants. And having that very long bloom period is very important for them. This way, no matter what our climate does to us, we've got something blooming that these guys can eat. So butterfly needs are caterpillar needs. So when we think about what humans can eat, we're like, well, we can eat a lot of stuff. Yeah, we can eat a lot of stuff. We're omnivores. But caterpillars are what's called specialist feeders. And a lot of the way our ecosystem functions is based on having that large variety of specialist feeders in the landscape that do whatever they're doing. They're pollinating or they're going to grow up to be pollinators. They can't eat anything other than for caterpillars, the leaves they co-evolved with, and for specialist bees, the pollen they co-evolved with. It doesn't do them any good to have anything else. So that's why we need to plant for them in our landscape. Butterfly life cycle, you may very well know. This is, again, the beautiful pipevine swallowtail butterfly. Bug Day, Randall Museum, April 20th. We're going to have caterpillars and adults. Going to be gorgeous. And pipevine. So that is both eggs and pipevine caterpillars, that on the far right, on a chewed pipevine leaf. Those caterpillars go through a lot of different life stages. So they not only need these leaves, I'm asking a lot of you, but I'm asking that you find a way to have leaves stay on the ground in your area, because these caterpillars, when they go to turn into cocoons, those cocoons look like dead leaves for a reason. The caterpillars don't want to get eaten by birds when they're caterpillars. They also don't want to get eaten when they're in cocoons. And so the best way for them to hide is to look like a dead leaf. Now, nectar plants, got a lot of choices, But if you don't have those caterpillars, if you don't have those special caterpillar plants, you're not going to end up with butterflies. We should have clouds of butterflies from June to October. So it's one of my measurements of success. I want to see clouds of butterflies. I want every single spare inch of San Francisco to have our local native plants on them so that we can have lots and lots of butterflies. So what are my ecosystem success criteria? Healthy ecosystem signs, in addition to clouds of butterflies. It's caterpillars. It's those chewed leaves. Chewed leaves are good. It's bird nests. It's bee nests. Most of our bees, 70% of them, nest in the ground or in a pristine dune. Amphibians, predators, this is what a healthy ecosystem looks like. Those chewed leaves are good. Leaves on the ground. Those dried flower parts, birds use those for nesting materials. Birds eat those native plant seeds, and they really love the native grass seeds. And some of our native bees, not only there's the 70% that nest in the ground, some of them nest in stems. So blue elderberry, wonderful hollow stems for those. The native plant seeds, your native plants feed wildlife at all of the plant and the wildlife stages, including when the flowers go to seed and the plants go dormant. So consider leaving some of those there. And plant to feed your ecosystem in every season. And if you need to coordinate with your neighbors or nearby green space to do that, that also works. Actions you can take. We're going to spend some time on this. So I talked about San Francisco Estuary Institute earlier. They have done a Making Nature City toolkit, and they have looked at the urban biodiversity success factor, and they are native plants, and then green corridor stepping stones. Take a look at that picture. San Francisco is 68% paved, and so every plant is an opportunity to feed caterpillars and other specialist insects and wildlife. And we just don't have a lot of green space left. And so if we can, even if what you have are containers on a north-facing balcony, you can put plants in those containers. You can put plants in an abandoned tree well. These plants will help that butterfly or bee or whatever other wildlife we're trying to feed be able to have the energy and find a snack as it goes to find another snack, a mate, a home. Every little bit helps. And so that's what those green corridors are and what wildlife corridors are and why I'm going to go on and on about those. And the quality of the green space. A lot of weeding needs to happen. There are a lot of invasive plants in San Francisco and really all over North and South America. Columbian exchange didn't go well for us. And so quality of the green space is get rid of those weeds, no pesticides, no herbicides, no fungicides, no rodenticides. And the size of the green space will matter. So your abandoned tree well, that's an opportunity for wildlife to have a snack. But a lot of the wildlife that we have needs a bigger space. So California quail, coveys of the covey size is a minimum of 50. And so they really need some space. Those coyote pairs, they really need some space. And so it's important that we maintain our green spaces and keep those in good space, in good shape, and that we take really good care of lakes, aquifers, large trees. Those things really make a difference to wildlife. 68% paved. We can do better with that other 32%. Right now, my measurements are showing that we have less than 1% native. I think San Francisco Department of Environment is estimating 4%. 4%, not a good number. We can do better. So, iNaturalist, which I will also go on and on about. Some of you may not have smartphones, or you may not want to use an app, but iNaturalist is available as both for an app on a smartphone, also as a web application. Every one of those green dots is one of our local native California plants. And every one of those red dots, that's one of actually 31 of our 35 butterflies. And so you can see that where we are putting native plants, we are also getting butterflies. But if we take a closer look, and this is looking at Sunset Boulevard, where Bob Hall and a lot of you CNPS, Yerba Buena volunteers have been adding native plants and watering and weeding. You can see that we have a lot of spaces where we do not have green dots, where we don't have those native plants, so that we can be making more space for those butterflies, so that we can come up with that caterpillar food that they need. And so some of that is because some of you haven't added your gardens to iNaturalist for whatever reason. One of the things you can do if you want to is let us know in the chat that we're welcome to come by and put your garden on iNaturalist. It means taking pictures, and then that will add green dots. And that helps us show the city that we are serious, that adding native plants helps feed those caterpillars, and this way that we have butterflies, because it's really hard for the city to say no to butterflies. It's really hard for everyone to say no to butterflies. And that particular project on iNaturalist, the San Francisco Native Ecosystems, you're welcome to join it. You don't have to join it. Your inputs will be automatically added to it. And iNaturalist, by the way, is supported by the California California Academy of Sciences in Golden Gate Park. It's a worldwide, it gives the opportunity for people to add observations worldwide, and it's really a lot of fun. And so, call to action, a lot of you, I want to let you know, you are enough, and you are already doing enough, because a lot of you will say, oh no, I have no more time. I completely understand. You have your life, you have what you're doing, and I appreciate the fact that you're on this webinar and are listening and have considered putting in native plants, in addition to those of you who have put in native plants. So I've got a long list here, and some of you may have some additional ideas, in which case add them to the chat so that I can make this chart even better. So my ask is that if you find any of these ideas intriguing or interesting, that you consider, do I have the time? Would I have a friend who has some time? Do I know someone who might be interested in doing this? For heaven's sake, don't think you have to do it all. You're already doing enough. So the list is plant native plants. This way we're building those corridors for wildlife. Consider joining a neighborhood group to plant native plants, to teach people what the plants are, to teach people what the butterflies are, to teach people what the ecosystem is like, and to teach people what the weeds are, so that when they're walking by, they'll just pull them out like I do. It's interesting. I heard someone say that we live in an environment that is entirely designed, so we might as well get good at it. So consider learning how to design native green spaces. I'm not good at this, but there's a lot of people who can't afford to have a native green space designed, or just have a very small green space. They really have that 2 foot by 3 foot abandoned tree well where you need 3 plants. And so if you can learn to think around that and say, okay, let's look at bloom period, let's look at plant size, let's look at the sun and shade and the soil and whether or not somebody's going to be willing to water. These are the 3 plants I recommend. That will help people. So consider learning how to do that. Consider advocating with me to the city and the county and with schools to plant native plants. A lot of you are already doing that, and I really appreciate it. Every bit of advocacy we provide makes a difference. Get to know your local rec and park gardener, help them weed. Once they trust you to weed, they will trust you to weed on their own. And then you can start asking them to add native plants into that rec and park space. But we have a lot more green space that belongs to groups other than rec and park. We have Public Works, we have the port, we have San Francisco Unified School District. We have the libraries. They have their own green spaces. Laguna Honda Hospital is part of the San Francisco Department of Health. It's got a lot of green space, and San Francisco Urban Writers is doing a really nice job of renovating those spaces. So the advocacy is, part of it is sometimes being on Zoom, and part of it is being out there with your local group and encouraging them to let you help them weed and add native plants in when you've taken those weeds out. CNPS Yerba Buena has got, we're working with the Randall Museum again, Bug Day, April 20th. They've started adding more of our local native plants, and they're going to put signage in, and I'm really excited that we're going to have that opportunity to not only have native plants in a great space like that next to Corona Heights Park, but also have signage so that local people can learn what is native here, what grows here, and who eats those plants. Please remove invasive plants, and we have learned a lot about removing invasive plants. The plan is to not just remove an invasive plant, but then to put in a native plant afterwards. So you could be weeding all summer, but with the plan of adding a native plant this coming November to March during the rainy season. California Native Plant Society Yerba Buena, we use our donations to buy soil for propagators. We've got a lot of great propagators, including Susan Mulaney, who's on here, and also to buy plants for schools, community gardens, and public green spaces. So if you are helping support a public green space and you want some plants, please let us know what those are, and we'll get that in the queue and see what we can do to get you those plants. If we can get it, or if we can even get a cutting from someone, that would be wonderful. That helps us make sure that we have those plants in our queue. So please propagate native plants. We've got, what, 6 or 8 people who propagate plants. For me, it's really hard. I've had trouble propagating strawberries, which I'm assured is fall off a log easy. But we do have a bunch of propagators using some astonishingly small spaces to get us a lot of plants, and that helps us provide these free plants across the city. Save native plant seeds. So only save native plant seeds. Not from the Presidio, we're not permitted, and not from San Bruno Mountain, we're not permitted, and not from Oregon's park space, we're not permitted, but other spaces. So the seeds we're looking forward to getting are seeds where we know what the species is. If it's a buckwheat and you're not sure which buckwheat, we can't use those seeds. If it's a buckwheat, it's a Southern California buckwheat, we won't give those away. Rec and Park has put a surprising number of Southern California buckwheats into our spaces. We don't, that's not it. If you are wondering what our local buckwheats look like, go to Chrissy Field. It's absolutely gorgeous right now. We have a super bloom. Everything is blooming all over the city. Every green space is gorgeous. And Chrissy Field is a really good example of what our coast buckwheat, Eriogonum latifolium, and our nude buckwheat, Eriogonum nudum, look like. And so when you save those native plant seeds, you can give them to us in just bags. We've got, it's kind of like a sewing circle, but we've got a little seed packing circle where people hang out in the fall after people have done their seed collection and given it to us. It's fine with us if you just give it to us in a big bag with the species name on it, and we'll put them in packets and give them away. If you were at the Randall in January for our member event, we gave all of our seeds away. So for those of you who have grown seeds for us before and given them to us in bags, we put them in little packets and gave them away, and people were so happy to get them. Create plant lists. I've got a ton of plant lists on our website because I don't ever want to have to create another plant list for the same thing again. But there may be a plant list that you find is particularly applicable for your particular area of town. And so it's very helpful for neighbors to know what's easy. You know, what's easy, what's colorful, what's interesting. Consider collecting rainwater for irrigation. I'm so grateful for the last couple of years of good rainfall that we've had, but that is not going to last. We will have some very, very droughty years. That's how California works. And if you have rainwater storage and irrigation, you can use that to continue to water those baby plants in their first year or two. And that helps them get established and helps your garden look great. And it means that you're not dependent on city water for that. If you like to hike in our green spaces, please go do that. And please consider leading hikes in our green spaces. We are looking for a field trip lead, and field trips just make people so happy. That contributes citizen science data. That could be iNaturalist, it could be eBird, it could be other citizen science applications. Makes all the difference when we talk to the city. as to what we're doing. Map butterfly corridors, let people know what's near them. Illustrate brochures, become a naturalist, make videos, tell stories, go dance with the butterflies, do what's fun. It's wonderful. So caterpillars, they're feeding our ecosystem, our introduced plants, they're not doing much for us. I'm not kidding about rainwater storage. It's very important. This particular slide is from the Watershed Project, but there are a lot of great companies out there doing rainwater storage and irrigation. And the April 26th upgrade of Calscape is going to include landscape professionals, and I can't wait. There are a lot of great groups in the city. This is just a small set of them. Not only does Yerba Buena get out there and take out weeds and install native plants, but Nature in the City has been doing this for decades to build the Green Hair Street Corridor. San Bruno Mountain Watch does this. The Presidio does this. SF Urban Riders does this. Russian Hill Neighbors does this. Find a green space you care about, and then find what group is managing that. We've got a Girl Scout group at Christopher Park that is very impressive. And so get out there and decide what's fun for you. And if it's not fun, don't do it, because this is the only life you'll have. Go have fun doing it. All right, so these are my calls to action. Let's talk about butterflies and plant communities. So northern coastal dunes and dune scrub, the mission blue is federally endangered. The coastal green hair streak is threatened. They need us to plant our local lupines, the local buckwheats, the local deerweed. I'll say with that Southern California buckwheat, one of the ways you can tell it's a Southern California buckwheat is because it's not getting chewed on. And I'm looking for those chewed leaves. I'm looking for that chewed lupine and the chewed buckwheat. It makes me very happy. And you can look at these other butterflies and see that, wait, a lot of butterflies are using buckwheat or deerweed. The hollyleaf cherry is the keystone species for the coastal dune scrub, and it supports almost 300 different butterflies, including the beautiful and tiny Echo azure and the pale tiger swallowtail. So you can look at this and just go, oh, I'm seeing a lot of the same plants again and again and again. That's because this is that plant community supporting this set of butterflies. So if you live out in the Richmond or the Sunset, or you're in Pacifica, these are your butterflies. Grassland. So this is a combination of the regular grassland plus the serpentine grassland butterflies. That bay checker spot, it's federally endangered. It uses just one plant. I've heard there might be a second one, but mostly just one plant. It's an annual, it's the dot seed planting, the Plantago erecta. It's a cute little plant, white flower. You can get the seeds, they're available. But it is an annual, which means you could put it in a container and grow it. And for those of you who are from the Potrero Eco Patch and the fabulous work that you're doing on serpentine there, that particular butterfly is a serpentine specialist because it's so hard for plants to grow in serpentine that Plantago erecta doesn't get shaded out, and this way it gets full sun. San Bruno elfin, federally endangered. Just that one plant, the stone crop. But you can look and see, oh wait, there's another butterfly using the stone crop, the gray buckeye. It was the common buckeye, now it's been renamed. We have a lot of different grasses that actually provide caterpillar food, which is just, it's amazing to me. Fescues, bent grass, just sedges. It's amazing. The field crescent uses the goldenrod. So if you're like, oh, grasses, that's nice, I really like flowers. Well, the plantain has flowers, the stone crop has flowers, lomatium, nettle, all of the mallows have flowers, and the goldenrod has fabulous flowers. And not only does it have wonderful flowers, but it's got those great summer blooming flowers, which are important summer food for the adult butterflies. Oak woodlands, we have fewer butterflies here. I don't know if it's because it's dark or what, but we've got a couple that are actually a few that use our coast live oak, which is the keystone species for the northern oak woodland here in San Francisco. There's only one native oak here, and it's the coast live oak. It gets to be 70 feet by 70 feet, best planted from an acorn in October when those acorns are nice and fresh. And you just keep watering it and it will grow very quickly. It loves to, it's got a taproot. California sister, that is its only larval plant. Now, it is any California oak. It could be the Valley oak in the East Bay, but the only one we've got here, the one that can handle our fog and wind, that's the coast live oak. California tortoiseshell, that is absolutely gorgeous. Oak and California lilac, western tiger swallowtail, oaks, cherries, maples. They like big trees. Pipevine swallowtail, one plant. We've been talking about this one, just the pipevine. That pipevine needs a lot of shade. It's got to get planted in the shade. It will eventually crawl towards the sun. But it is our very shade-friendly vine, very soft leaves. The tailed copper uses just the current. Well, and we've got a bunch of other plants that use the currant. The currant is important. It is a winter blooming plant that provides food for overwintering hummingbirds and bumblebees, those earlier arriving queen bumblebees. These plants are important. They don't just feed our caterpillars. Pale tiger swallowtail, California lilac, the ceanothus, and coffeeberry. And the ceanothus silk moth and the polyphemus moth are big showy moths. They're just gorgeous. So riparian, that fancy word for creekside. We've got variable checker spots that are federally endangered and calliope silver spots that are federally endangered and the myrtle silver spot that's federally endangered. And they are all looking for our local violets. The introduced violets won't do. And it just makes me sad to go from page to page and go, I need to put all of these plants in my landscape. There are a variety of different violets. Most of them need a lot more water, but the dog violet, the Viola adunca can take, or the Huckspur violet, less water than the yellow violet does. If you've got an area that you are constantly watering, go put some violet in that. That's edible for people as well as caterpillars. Pipevine swallowtail, that pipevine is raising its little hands going, I'm riparian. It's fine. It's drought tolerant. It would appreciate some more water its first couple of years of life. And the more you water it, the more it will grow. But it's drought tolerant. Western tiger swallowtail, we've seen that before because it can take it likes some really big trees. It also likes our local willows, as does the morning cloak, as does the satyr. And the Miletus crescent likes monkey flower. We've got 3 monkey flowers. One is the yellow bush monkey flower that is quite a bit more drought tolerant, but it does like a more rocky soil. And then a couple of monkey flowers that need more water. The seep monkey flower, and it's not kidding. It really wants it damp. And then some wetlands. We've got the western pygmy blue and the purplish copper that use our salt marshes and our lakes. And so these are all the gorgeous, gorgeous butterflies you could have when you plant your native plants in their plant communities on the soils that they evolved in. They'll be so happy. So let's talk butterfly plants in the garden, because you might want a 70-foot by 70-foot oak in your backyard, but that just might not fit. So let's talk about what we've got. These are the guides. It's there's going to be a little stamp saying number of butterfly and moth caterpillar species fed by that plant's leaves, whether or not it's long blooming. I call long blooming 3 months or more. It turns out that years where we get a lot of rain, we get a longer bloom. So I have a few plants in here that I didn't count as long blooming, but last year they were because they got more water. They are all drought tolerant unless they have that little water drip sign. Medium water, which is the same amount as a lawn, or high water, which is one of those riparian willow. It needs constant damp. We're going to look at ground covers, shorter flowers, grasses, compact shrubs, vines, trees, and container plants. So much fun. So we talked about the stone crop. We've got, these are great evergreen plants. There is a version of California, actually two versions of the California sagebrush. It's just wonderful. And the Montara mountain grows really well on the rocky soils. Canyon gray grows well in both sand and in clay. Strawberries are wonderful evergreen ground covers. And the woodland strawberry can take a lot of shade, and it can take some foot traffic. California aster, not quite as flat as those, but just wonderful at spreading. Seaside daisy, wonderful long blooming plant. California lilac, we have one species that is local here, and that's the blue blossom California lilac, the Ceanothus thyrsophloris. I wouldn't normally talk about cultivars in a I want you to plant for caterpillars list, but sometimes you just need a flat version of California lilac, and there are a lot of gorgeous ones. And so one of the things to do when you go take a look at that in the landscape is go see if the leaves are chewed on. If the leaves are chewed on, you're going to at least get some caterpillar benefit out of it. And then we have, it's so odd. We have some ground covers that are deciduous, either during the summer or the winter. Violets are stress deciduous. Harlequin lotus, if anybody has that, we would love to get a cutting from you. It's absolutely gorgeous, and we're not propagating it because we can't find it. Checker bloom is beautiful. It's summer deciduous or stress deciduous. Creeping snowberry is deciduous during the winter, and it is very shade tolerant. Rock cress can handle a lot of fog and wind, as can that Harlequin lotus. Grassland plants, again, somehow we've got caterpillars using those. And then look at that picture from the Oakland Museum. That oat grass, it's gorgeous. Look at the depth on that root system. This is why we keep talking about California grasslands being great at sequestering carbon, because they've got great root systems. More wonderful grasses. We've got a few of those grasses can be mowed. That fescue is both the California fescue and the red fescue, the rubra, can be mowed, and those are bunch grasses. So we actually have some of our ground nesting bees like to nest in those. But if what you're looking for is a very, very, very low water use lawn replacement, consider the fescues. We do have some shorter plants. Yampa is pretty short. Poppies are short. Yarrow is short. Limation short. Dotseed plantain, we talked about that before. We've got to have that in our grasslands, in our serpentine grasslands, in our containers, so that we can have that bay checker spot. Yarrow is a really, really tough plant. Poppies are tough plants. So some of these are just really easy to grow, as well as supporting a variety of butterflies. My yarrow is already blooming. Poppies are already blooming. More short plants. So that deerweed is wonderful, very bright yellow, very friendly, a wonderful adult nectar plant, as well as being a great and important dune scrub caterpillar plant. And one of the caterpillar plants for the coastal green hair streak. San Francisco wallflower is wonderful. It's scented, it's short, it's really cute. That clover actually needs quite a bit of water, but if you are in an area where you're watering anyway, go ahead and add that. It's a wonderful plant. I mean, 67 caterpillars, it's incredible. Cow parsnip. So Susan, I believe you refer to cow parsnip as what is it? A biodiversity killer, because it will just shade out everything.
Yeah, well, plants that spread aggressively can seem to kill your biodiversity.
Yeah, it goes to seed beautifully.
But I've seen birds' nests in them, so I can't be upset about them now.
Adorable. Oh, I did not know that. And the other thing is if you have been worried about taking out fennel because you want to make sure you continue to have a caterpillar plant for the Anna swallowtail, put in cow parsnip instead. It may be very successful, but it's not invasive. And bee plant is really fun. Lots of it's got rhizomes, it just spreads, it's got very tiny red flowers. And yes, for California Native Plant Society, I was like, you guys, we get the caterpillar baby pictures. They're just so cute. Thistle is a big deal. These are more compact plants. We've got invasive thistles and native thistles. And so a bunch of us just go, oh, thistle, I have to pull it out. Nope, nope. Some of them are native thistles and they're important. And they're also important specialist bee plants. Buckwheats are gorgeous. Someone took that really cute picture of a coastal green hair streak and a bumblebee. It's just adorable. It's just a great plant to feed adult butterflies as well as all of those important local dune scrub butterflies. Cudweed, not a pretty name, but a cute plant. Horkalea, cute plant, and mock heather, very long blooming. So if you are a new gardener or you are a new gardener in California and you're wondering, okay, I just need something tough that won't die. This is my it's tough and it won't die plant list. If you put it in the ground, any soil, any sun, any shade, um, just the more water you give it, the more successful it'll be. And a bunch of these will spread. Bee plant will spread, California poppies will spread, the yarrow will spread, the cow parsnip will, it'll spread. These are great plants and they're easy. And so go ahead and start with the easy ones if you're a new gardener, and then grow into the other ones. And this way, the easy ones will always be there cheering you on because you are doing the right thing. Evergreen shrubs. So we've got some of our lupines are shrubby. Some of them are annuals, some of them are shrubby. The Lupinus albifrons is one of the shrubs, and it is gorgeous. And it's got 70 different caterpillars, including the federally endangered mission blue. We've got, I think, 6 or 7 lupine species local here in San Francisco. The mission blue only eats 2 or 3 of them, Lupinus albifrons and Lupinus albifrons colonists, and I've heard maybe varicolor, but it's got a very specific diet. California sagebrush is it's another easy plant, and it's just wonderful. The Artemisia californica can do a lot of different kinds of soil. The Ichnocephala really wants sand, and the Douglasiana can take a lot of shade because it's an oak woodland understory plant. California lilac, I mean, oh my gosh, there's just nothing prettier. California lilacs with some poppies and some lupines, and it's just gorgeous. And it's the Thrissophlorus that's our local one, and it's 12 foot by 12 foot. And you only water it the first year. It doesn't want to be watered after that. No summer water after that. Winter water, if it's just one of those terrible years, it would appreciate 12 to 14 inches of rain in the winter. And if it looks like there's not enough, just give it some more, but give that extra water in the winter and early spring, please. Vetch is pretty. We've got invasive vetches and we've got native vetches. This is our native one. Angelica is very pretty. And the orange bush monkey flower is our drought tolerant monkey flower, and it just does really well in rocky soil. So these plants can do a lot. If you need something big but shrubby that you can trim, and this way you get some visual privacy. You've got goldenrod can get pretty big. Coffeeberry can get very big, and it can take any sun or shade. That goldenrod can actually take part shade. Red berries, a relative of the coffeeberry, any sun, any shade. Huckleberry grows very slowly, but I was on a webinar with Juanita Salisbury the other day, and she said that cottonseed meal added to huckleberry soil will get it to grow more quickly. My 15-year-old huckleberry which will eventually get to 12 feet, is a big 4 feet by 3 feet now. It's very slow growing, but very important. It does want some more water, and its fruit is delicious. So deciduous shrubs, so you've got to be okay with plants losing their leaves, but that's part of how they evolved. We do have a couple of different rose species. They can actually take quite a bit of shade. They're very thorny, so just keep that in mind. They're good at keeping people and some larger wildlife out of areas just because it's not much fun to have them. I guess I've heard that quail will nest underneath it because it's just so unpleasant to get into. They're ground nesting birds. We don't, to my knowledge, have any quail in town, but you could be adding some quail habitat if you added it. There are a couple of versions of snowberry. Don't eat those berries, by the way. They're supposed to taste disgusting. There is the ground cover version that we showed earlier, and then there's a shrubby version, and they can take a lot of shade. I've got those growing in a very shady space. Ocean spray can get pretty big, it's scented, and it is deciduous. And then we've got a bunch of different currants. The pink flowering currant can take some shade. It's oak woodland understory as well as dune scrub. And the malvaceum and the menzies both want fog, wind, sun, in terms of something that isn't darkly shady. It's called multipath that you get of sun through fog, and they do fine with that. And all of those berries are edible on the currants. We got a bunch of vines, and they support caterpillars. That pipevine is down there. It's a great plant, very soft. I've got to say, it's not right for a formal garden. It's going to help itself to whatever it feels like doing. But for something more flashy, try the Pacific pea or the clematis. Oh, Pacific pea, clematis, they both need full sun. That pipevine, full shade. Oak woodland trees. We've got that coast live oak. There are some chrysolepsis that are native here. I'd go with the agrifolia. Blue elderberry. Blue elderberry is one of those plants. It's got a range from Oregon down to Baja California along the coast. It wants to call itself riparian. It's not. It's really drought tolerant. It will grow faster with more water, but it grows very, very fast already. My 14-year-old blue elderberry is close to 30 feet. It's just enormous. Edible berries, and it's just this incredible bird feeder. The tiny insects show up for the shallow flowers that the birds eat, and then the birds can eat the berries as well as people eating the berries. Hazelnuts are wonderful. They need extra water. You need 2 of them to get nuts. I've never pruned mine. They're just beautiful. They have a gorgeous vase shape and some really pretty fall color. Big leaf maple, very pretty. It'll get to 30 feet in San Francisco, 100 feet on Vancouver Island with a lot more water. It is a medium water use tree. It will eventually become drought tolerant. I'm not sure when. The hazelnut will also become eventually drought tolerant. Again, not sure when. Toyon, extremely drought tolerant. It wants a lot of sun. It grows in that oak woodland patch where some sun gets there. And the toyon really spreads across a bunch of different plant communities. So it's oak woodland, it's dune scrub, it's grassland, it's chaparral, it's everywhere. And that's one of the reasons it's all the way down past Los Angeles. Evergreen, white flowers, red berries for migrating birds. It's a very important tree. And I've noticed I put one in a couple of years ago, and it's just gotten a lot of water and it's grown pretty quickly. So you're looking for some trees for a foggy area. Hollyleaf cherry, dune scrub, keystone species, evergreen, beautiful. Those are actually white flowers. I took that picture and I'm not sure why it's yellow. Red edible cherries that are very attractive to birds as well as people. California wax myrtle. In my part of the city, which is the northeast part in North Beach, we're sunnier and drier, and it's not happy. here, but I hear that it does not need a lot of additional water in the Sunset and the Richmond. If it's getting fog drip, it seems to do fine. And so that's good to know. The Coast Silk Tassel, I wasn't going to talk about plants unless they fed caterpillars, but it's such a great tree. And it's so great at blocking fog and wind, not only from people, but also from some of the smaller plants behind it. So Hollyleaf cherry is a fog and wind blocker. Coast silk tassel blocks fog and wind. California wax myrtle blocks fog and wind. Great plants for those areas of town. And riparian, we have 3 different kinds of willows, just in case you want to choose. And they're all just incredible, over 300 different species of butterflies and moths. They are the keystone species for our creekside areas. So let's talk container gardening. We have got a lot of plants that do well in containers. Basically, if it's an annual or a bulb, it's going to be great in a container. So these are container plants that do well in containers and where their leaves feed caterpillars. We've got the lupine, we've got the Chinese houses, and dotseed plantain, which I just will not shut up about because it's so important for that bay checker spot. We've got stonecrop. So we do have 3 different kinds of succulents that are native to San Francisco. That stonecrop for federally endangered butterfly. Put that in cactus mix or some stone. It is used to being on stony outcrops, and that's what it prefers. Strawberry does fine in a deeper pot. It is perennial, but it's great. And violets can be put in pots as well. I've got friends who are growing violets in pots. Again, wasn't going to talk about something unless it feeds caterpillars, but look at the number of different butterfly species that are fed by the blue dips. It's amazing. This just all over iNaturalist, and so you had to see it. It's a great plant. So I like to think about planting, especially with native plants, as planting a buffet. Who am I there to feed? Because I may be there to feed the caterpillars and maybe some adult butterflies, and then maybe some specialist bees. Well, anyway, I'm there to feed everybody. But depending on who you want to feed, you may have a variety of wildlife show up. So we always want to feed for caterpillars and for those specialist bees. We already talked about the adult butterfly buffet. Let's talk a bee buffet, a hummingbird buffet, and edible native plants for people. And the search term for that is ethnobotany. Look at that long bloom period. We need those early blooming plants. We need those manzanitas. We need those barberries and the woolly sunflowers and the seaside daisies, because we need to feed those early arriving queen bumblebees so that they can start putting together lunch boxes for the baby bees. We've got a lot of blooms happening between March and June. And then we end up having fewer plants that are really going to bloom their little hearts out through the summer and early fall so that we can continue to feed the bees that arrive. And then those winter plants are so important. The pink flowering currant, the mock heather, and the asters. This way we've got that continuous buffet for our bees and for our adult butterflies. Hummingbirds do not want to migrate. They can, but they use a lot of energy and they don't want to. They want to be able to get nectar year-round, and they want to be able to eat gnats for protein. And so that pipevine, by the way, gnat pollinated. So another great thing to have in your yard. It doesn't seem to feed the hummingbird directly because you're not really ever going to see the gnats, but it'll really help your hummingbirds. And so we're looking for those plants that they can use to get nectar in the winter months, manzanita and barberry and currant, and then something for them to eat in the summer, such as the California fuchsia or that Malva rosa. They'll take nectar from the dahlia, from the honeysuckles, irises, maples, and penstemons, and of course, hummingbird sage, Salvia spathica, just a great plant for them in the columbines. So if you are planting for hummingbirds, we still have lots of choices for you. And for people, we can eat those sage leaves and those sage flowers. Yerba Buena, delicious. Miner's lettuce, it's all over the city right now, delicious. Strawberries are in bloom right now. Start to see some strawberry fruit pretty soon. Onions, completely edible. The flowers, the leaves, the seeds, as well as the bulbs. If you eat the bulb, you can't eat the rest of you won't have the rest of the plant next year. And so I tend to wait and have them just expand. Lots of great plants to eat for people as well as for wildlife. So where can you find some more information about this? Doug Tallamy, Calscape, which I keep going on and on about, CalFlora, and native plant lists. So Doug Tallamy's best practices are to plant those local native keystone plants, oaks, willows, and cherries, if you have the room for it. Plant a variety of local native plants, plant for those specialist pollinators and caterpillars, keep those leaves on the ground, coordinate with your neighbors to build that caterpillar corridor. Please don't spray anything that's going to kill something. Build a conservation hardscape. He's recommending using motion sensors for your lights and using yellow LED light bulbs, and install a water bubbler if you specifically if you're planting for birds. Really makes a difference. Please advocate for native plants, remove your lawn, and remove invasive species. If it sounds like the action list before, it's because they overlap. He's given some great talks, written some great books. If you haven't heard him speak, he's a lot of fun. Calscape. So this is the current Calscape. As soon as they roll out the new one, I will have screenshots from that. They will still have a 10-mile radius. We're 7 by 7 miles with at least 6 different soil types. And so you always need to check your soil type, especially if you've got rocky soil. Want to make sure you've got something that is appropriate for that. Some things just have to have sandy soil. I keep trying to grow Lupinus albifrons in clay, and it doesn't work. They also include native plant nurseries, and they're going to have so much more soon. They're going to have lawn replacement. They'll have professionals. They'll have container plants. I can't wait. And they'll still have butterfly information. And you can go back and forth between the butterfly and the plants that feed it. And this way, for instance, if you're interested in a butterfly that would eat a monkey flower and you don't have a seep or someplace that you water all the time, so you can't use the seep monkey flower or the red monkey flower, you can go get the yellow bush monkey flower. Both Calscape and CalFlora will show you that geographic range. Strongly recommend, as we are planting for climate change, that you look for that range that is not only here so that we can handle the high water use years, but also farther south. And we've got a lot of plants that meet that criteria, including that pink flowering currant that I go on and on about. If you look on the right, that's the hazelnut, and the peninsula is the southern tip for that. And so that may not do so well with climate change. It's another reason to put it someplace cool. Put it in private landscapes where you can really look in on it. I haven't successfully put it in a public landscape yet. I've got my eye on a couple that have got irrigation. Specifically Francisco Park, I'm going to ask them to do it because they've got a reservoir storage for rainfall, and this way we're not using city water to water them. But they're not going to do as well with climate change, but I still don't want to lose any of the pollinators associated with them, plus edible hazelnuts. We've got a bunch of different plant lists on our website, the California Native Plant Society, Yerba Buena, Biodiversity Resources. We've got butterfly caterpillars. We've got edible plants and bees and hummingbirds and shade and color and long blooming and sidewalks and containers and bioswales, and different ones for each one of the plant communities with the associated butterflies, and a landscape design one in case you specifically are looking for, I need a particular kind of hedge. It's in, or a lawn replacement. That's where I currently have all that information. We are the California Native Plant Society. We have free lectures. We have free hikes. We do restoration. We do advocacy. We donate plants and seeds to public green spaces, community gardens, and schools. I am so glad that you are part of us. I'm so glad that you're here tonight. Let's take some questions. Susan, what do you think? Should we read questions or have people put their hands up? What do you think?
I have been keeping a list. So everyone who's paying attention to the chat will see that I've been pasting massive, long comments, those are all from Susan Karasoff. She compiled all of this information so that it can be put there in text if people want to click links or copy the question, the resources. And then because everyone's comments and questions are lost in there, I've been keeping track of them. So Robin Mitchell gave she said another source of Doug Tallamy's information is on the Bringing Back the Natives garden tour website. That takes place in the East Bay, and he's given several keynote talks. So she put the link to that website, which is bringingbackthenatives.net. And then Robin and Bob both mentioned Hooker's Evening Primrose because they are natural bird feeders. Tiffany Lowenberg says, how does she make her backyard into a native plant space? So I think she can start. Robin Mitchell says to start is to go on one of the native plant garden tours. And upcoming is the Bringing Back the Natives garden tour, which I believe is in the peninsula in the South Bay on May 4th and 5th. And their website is bringingbackthenatives.net.
I think that's the East Bay one. There's another one.
Oh, you're right. And then the Santa Clara Valley CNPS is having a garden tour this weekend. And theirs is gngT.org, which stands for GNGT. I forget.
Yeah, me
Go
too.
Native Garden Tour. And then Bob pasted into the chat a link on our website to some virtual garden tours that we had during the pandemic. So he put the link there. You would probably be able to find it on the website. I think it's under biodiversity resources. And then Erica asked if your talk applies to LA. And Robin Mitchell said, well, I don't know if it was specifically an answer for that, but it is relevant. She said Calscape has a list of native plant nurseries, and so that definitely includes Southern California. And she noted that when you're shopping for plants, inquire about how local it is to your area. I think native plant nurseries, the people who work there have so much information. And then Robin Mitchell said she loves it like you, Susan. She loves to see leaves that have been eaten by critters. And when she sees half circles cut out, they mean a leaf cutter bee has used it to line their nest.
Thank you. That's such a good point.
Yeah. And then
go ahead.
She planted Dutchman's pipe under her elderberry tree, where it's happily climbing through the limbs. And she is seeing the butterfly pipevine swallowtail. So they have finally found her Dutchman's pipevine.
Wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy.
And then in response to your lists of the rarer butterflies, Ren Gravely said that variable checker spot is quite common. And Bob said maybe you meant the bay checker spot. I don't know anything about that.
Variable I didn't think was common, but a bay checker spot is absolutely not common and is a nail-bitingly small population. But the variable, I know we've got areas that have it, like San Bruno Mountain and Glen Canyon.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you're talking specifically about San Francisco, and yeah. I don't know if Ren is speaking about only San Francisco or within their wider range. I'm not sure. And then Robin also mentioned regarding watering that she no longer has to water her pipevine.
Yes, it will become drought tolerant. It just helps those first few years. And
then Ren said, let's hope soon you can add the silvery blue to the list. And Bob is looking forward to the silvery blue being introduced. He thinks it uses lupin. And then Ren listed the three of the lupins, albifrons, formosus, and variecolor. Regarding woodland strawberry, Robin has some in under fruit trees in her front yard, and they are doing very well. Oh, and then Ren said to Bob, I think the silvery blue, it was extirpated from the city itself until the recently successful Presidio project, so it might still be sensitive within the urban area. And then when you were talking about grasses, Robin Mitchell shared an article about native bunch grasses that is on the East Bay CNPS website. And then when you were showing various photos, Ren noticed one that he thinks he may have taken. It was a swallowtail caterpillar.
Thank you for taking those.
In the Q&A, Julie asked which of the violas are native. And so I wrote that down. Someone else had answered it for her, but Viola adunca is the purple one and pedunculata is the yellow one.
Yeah, and there's also an adunca that is also a purple one, and
okay,
I can't tell them apart.
And then Ren said they are considering a quail reintroduction, but there are many considerations such as vehicles.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you had mentioned that pipevine might not be appropriate for a formal garden because it just likes to do its own thing. And Robin Mitchell said that her Dutchman's pipe under her elderberry is fine aesthetically to her.
It's fine aesthetically to me too, but I just want to be very respectful of people who like a tidier looking
yeah. And she says it's a very interesting plant, and I agree, those flowers that look like pictures. That's very cool. And then Bob said for wax myrtles, if you'd like to see examples, there's beautiful ones at the bottom of Tunnel Tops Park, where the kids' nature playground is. And then Robin shared a link to the Homegrown National Park website. That is about, I think it's Doug Tallamy's website, about planting natives in your backyard and turning your own home into a national park. And then we have some thank yous to you, Susan, in the chat. And they're telling you it's been a wonderful presentation. And Trina says she couldn't even hear this talk too many times. So she might revisit it because we are going to put it on the YouTube page. And then Bob said that due to the introduction in the Presidio of the variable checker spot, it is now common. Good. And they will be introducing the silvery blue that we talked about before. And he says it's a doppelganger of the extinct Xerxes blue.
Wow.
So you're caught up with what you missed in the chat.
Okay, thanks. Let me address Erica in Los Angeles, assuming I've got the right person. Just really briefly, I used to plant in Los Angeles. I used to live in Los Angeles and plant in Los Angeles, and I still have friends that do that. And there's a lot of the same coastal plants, although not the same butterflies. There's a federally endangered Palos Verdes blue butterfly related to these other blue butterflies that also uses, I think, deerweed and the local buckwheat there. And there's a federally endangered El Segundo blue butterfly. So, and those are both dune and dune scrub butterflies. So my recommendation is that you consider looking at Calscape, going for that admittedly 10-mile radius, and they'll not only tell you the plants, but you can go to the butterfly page, put in your address, and it'll tell you what your butterflies are and your moths. And so there may be some that are the same. The Vanessas are the same. So the West Coast lady, American lady, painted lady, and Red Admiral are all down in Los Angeles. But there are a lot of butterflies that aren't, and a swallowtails down there too. But you'll have your own set and your own set to grow for, and your own set of delicious plants. Oh, by the way, you've got a pink flowering currant down there. You also have lemonade berry and sugarberry that are really great drought tolerant evergreen bushes with tart. Well, the lemonade berry is a tart berry. I haven't tasted the sugarberry yet, but you've got some wonderful plants that are great down there that are gonna just feed your caterpillars. So you can get that information from Calscape, and you can also go to the National Wildlife Federation database. Do I have that? Yeah, on their native plant finder. Put in your zip code, and they'll tell you. I think it's county-wide who your county butterflies are and what plants are available there. And so that's going to help you dial that in. You can use that back and forth between Calscape and then go find your native nurseries down there. You guys have got Tree of Life. You've got Theodore Payne. You have some really nice nurseries that I miss. So go enjoy them for me. I mean, Theodore Payne right now is going to be an explosion of color. It's going to be gorgeous. The Huntington Museum has got a native garden section. It's going to be gorgeous. So you can go take a look at what those plants look like after you get a list off of Calscape and National Wildlife Federation, or you can just go there, decide what you like, and then go make absolutely sure that it's locally native. Because the closer to locally native you've got, the higher probability that you'll be feeding caterpillars and specialist bees with it. Oh yeah, don't let me go on and on. There's a lot of great plants down there. I was just down there. Yeah.
We have another question. Do you have any thoughts about Lepichinia fragrans, which I'm not sure which plant that is.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Okay.
So I do. I couldn't get Lepichinia calcinea, which is our local Lepichinia. I did finally get calcinea, and it's at the Lombard Reservoir, and it still looks like a little 1 gallon that hasn't died yet, which is good. So I have fragrans in my backyard. It's in the mint family. It is not delicious, and it doesn't get chewed on a lot, but the flowers are absolutely just the bumblebees are constantly in it. So it wouldn't be my top recommendation, just because I think it feeds one caterpillar. And if I were going to put in a mint family member that isn't Yerba Buena or hummingbird sage, I would put in one of our hedge nettles. They spread by rhizomes. Some of them need some water, so just be careful which one you get. I can't remember if it's Caminois or anyway, one that starts with a B. One of them is drought tolerant, and the rest of them need some water. But I've put them in public landscapes and in schools because it's a mint family member. So even if it's not delicious, it and Lepichinia fragrans and calcinea both have just sort of thick, cottony, soft leaves, but like not fun to eat. But the hedge nettle just gets devoured by some seriously adorable mint moths. So cute. One of those mint moths is pink. It's so, so adorable. But it doesn't matter how many mint family varieties I put in a landscape. If I put in hedge nettle, it gets eaten first. So it's pretty high on my list. So if you were going to do one rather than the other, I'd put in hedge nettle. They are shorter, so maybe you're thinking Lepichinia fragrans because it's taller. Honestly, mine is just I put it in for a certain size because I was hoping to block a particular thing I've been good at, so I wouldn't put it in for that. Put in something that's going to block something. I would put in that Malva rosa or the Malva asurgentifolia, which is taller than Lepichinia fragrans, but it's evergreen. It's got pink hibiscus-like flowers. They've got it in Francisco Park. If you want to go take a look at it, you do need a space that's big enough for it, but you can hedge it. And that's a nice looking hedge, as is coffeeberry, although in a completely different way. They have different colored leaves, and coffeeberry's flowers aren't as showy as as the Malva aspergentifolia. And I hope that helped.
Oh, Pam Sanchez is wondering if you could say, if you say the name of the plant you just recommended, I'll type it into the chat. The one in the mint family with
Oh, the hedge, it's
the hedge nettle.
Stachys.
Was
S-T-A,
Stachys?
yeah,
Okay,
Stachys.
I'm gonna type it. Stachyadjigoides, I think.
Yeah, so there's that one, and then there's a Burrata, I think. It's not burrata, that's cheese. I think it's Burrata, and then there's a Caminoides, and one of them is drought tolerant. And Susan, you've got some of those that you're propagating, right?
I do. Jill Stanton let us dig some out of her backyard, and they transplanted fabulously. I have quite a few of those ready for you to start
Yeah.
giving away.
Excellent.
And on San Bruno Mountain, they're blooming. They look beautiful.
Mine just started blooming in my backyard. And again, I should be able to remember which kind I put in. I think it's the Caminois, but it looks like it's the Burrata, but it's the sort of deep pink, the same color as the hummingbird sage.
Hmm.
The Stachys is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, very kid friendly.
I'm looking at Mike Wood's database of San Francisco native plants. And he has a few stackies. I don't know how you say it. I was taught that it's stackies, and that's what I've been
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, the
calling it. But
woods.
I'm adding the
San Bruno.
rest of those to the chat.
Yeah, I can't remember why I don't have them in here other than I need some water. Well, some of them do. Yeah, I've now had them in enough gardens to just see them preferentially eaten, which is of course what I want.
Yes. Okay. There's 5 stackies according to Mike Wood. And they're in the chat now.
Thank you.
So I guess that's it, unless you have thought of anything else.
Oh, I see someone recommending the California Botanic Garden in Claremont. So my other recommendation would be to really get out there and see some local green spaces. Go to if you're relatively new and you're wondering what these plants look like in the garden, to go on those garden tours. Thank you so much, Robin Mitchell, for recommending both the East Bay tour and we'll say the Peninsula tour. And thank you, Bob, for putting in our local ones. But there's going to be beautiful plants just everywhere. And this second year of rain has been incredible. So please go. This is my permission to you to go put in everything you want. It's been a great year to have things grow.
You know,
And
Susan, I just saw a question that came in a few minutes ago from Erica. She said, do you have any information on how a home garden could become an official butterfly habitat? She saw someone had asked earlier.
so National Wildlife Federation has got an approval, has got a specific process. I don't have that information.
Well, it probably, I think among all of the links we've shared, there might be references to it.
I don't not the links that I provided, because I just haven't been tracking that. There are some additional butterfly groups. There's the Hallberg Butterfly Garden up in Sebastopol that's absolutely gorgeous with some very, very old pipe vines, and that's beautiful. There's a Western Monarch group that's tracking the monarch numbers. There's an Oregon State pollination podcast, which is wonderful. They spend way too much time on honeybees, but they have the occasional butterfly podcast that is remarkably useful.
Just looking on the internet, I'm seeing that different organizations will certify you. So National Wildlife Foundation, I think, NWF comes up. Audubon can certify your backyard. NABA, I don't know what that is, but they can certify you as a butterfly garden.
Yeah, that's the National Association of Butterfly something or other. That's our national butterfly group. They're the ones that do a butterfly count in early June that Bob Hall's been a part of. My understanding is that it's still not exactly open to the public. And Bob, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I keep wondering if you might teach people how to take the data. Like do that as one of our field trips. Teach people how to take the data for the butterfly count. I know that it's done through the iNaturalist application, but I know I can't stop squealing when I see them, and they don't find that attractive behavior. So so I don't have a lot of butterfly pictures. So I really appreciate the people who do take the pictures, and Ren, including you. Thank you so much. It makes all the difference to have these great pictures. Even the caterpillars get annoyed when I squeal at them. So lots of great opportunities to put in gorgeous native plants and then see who shows up for dinner.
And then if anybody didn't notice, Bob just mentioned that he'd be happy to take people on a scouting mission for butterflies.
Ooh,
Um,
set that up.
and he can be contacted through the CNPS Yerba Buena chapter email. If you go to the website, the email is listed. It's a long Gmail address, but I can put it into the chat.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Bob. Because yeah, more people need to. I have to stop squealing, and it's just not going to happen. And they're not going to find it attractive. So thank you to those who can and do.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I'll talk
just
to
put
Maureen
in
so we can get an official field trip set up to teach people how to take the data for the National Butterfly Count. Because that happens in June, which is one of those months in which we should have clouds of butterflies.
Yes. Yeah, we need an infestation, but we have to make it happen.
Yeah, we do. And we are. I mean, this is the team that is making it happen. And this is the team that I'm so appreciative of being a part of.
Everyone in the chat, you're part of the team.
You're part of the team. You're on Team Butterfly. You're on Team Caterpillar. We are taking out the weeds and putting in some seeds.
Tiffany just said she's inspired, but that it's not the right time to plant. I think, Tiffany, if you are going to water until the plants are established, I don't think it's a bad time to plant. It's when we're planting out in native gardens where there's no irrigation, that's when it's optimum to plant during the rainy season. But in your own backyard, I think any time of year. But you might be thinking of wildflowers. Maybe it's too late to start seeds. I just started some seeds of Gilia and baby blue eyes, and they're starting. So at least those two, it's not too late.
Yeah, I'm a terrible gardener, so I really had that hard November 1st, or actually the first rain after November 1st to March 1st. I don't like to plant outside that area. So
Mm.
Tiffany, if you're just another gardener who's just like, okay, yeah, lost a lot of plants, I understand. But
Well, if it wasn't okay to plant year round, all of the native plant nurseries would go out of business.
that's what they keep telling me. So they keep asking me to stop talking about the whole November 1st to March 1st thing, but
Right.
I just know how hard it is for me to keep stuff alive.
It's been great, all the people participating in the chat. Thank you, everybody.
This is an active community. So it's really fun to have people do this and be here. So anything else that people need? Other than we need each other. And so thank you all for being part of this team.
And we can just remind people that Native Plant Week is coming up and we have 4 field trips. I don't know if all of them are on the calendar, but they will be in the next few days. So keep your eye out for those.
Oh yeah, and if people haven't been to Garden for the Environment, it's a wonderful garden at 7th Avenue in Lawton. And it's because of Trina, we've got a lot more native plants there. There's some rocky soil portions and some sandy soil portions and some great opportunities to see what kind of food grows in a sandy and rocky and foggy and windy part of town.
See you guys at Randall Bug Day.
Oh my gosh, bug day. I wish I could be there. All right, envious, you guys are going to get to see some pipe vines, swallowtails. Thanks, everybody. See y'all later. I'm going to go ahead and happy trail this.
Okay. Happy
Bye.
trails.
Happy trails.